Hello and welcome to Raising Minds.
I'm Dr. Susan Guiney.
And I'm Kristen Ancker.
And today we are going to talk about a very hot issue, bullying. And we're sure that you have heard so much about it and have many questions. And we're going to talk about the many facets of bullying. We want to start today by giving you a definition of exactly what bullying is. We got this definition from stopbullying.gov, which is a terrific online resource. They said, and we quote, "Bullying is unwanted, aggressive behavior that involves a real or perceived power imbalance. The behavior is repeated or has the potential to be repeated over time and is intentionally designed to hurt, threaten, or intimidate another person." Kristen.
I know. And we've been talking about bullying for a few months now that this is a hot topic. So there's a lot to cover. And it is that power imbalance and the intention to hurt. Yes. And then that repetition over time. So those are those three big components of bullying.
And the fact that it can be perceived. It doesn't actually have to be something physical that happens. It could be just perceived, which really takes it to another level.
And there are different forms of bullying. So, that physical bullying, and that's the one that you would remember with the hitting and the fighting and the spitting or damaging of property. Right. And then there's the verbal bullying.
Right.
The sticks and stones can break your bones, but names will never hurt you. I mean, it still hurts.
And the physical and the verbal are probably two of the most common that teachers and administrators and parents see, because children will come home and they'll be complaining about that. So, whether it involves this, an after-school suspension, some kind of discipline in school, or a phone call gets made to parents. That's usually how parents sometimes hear about it for the first time when it's happening outside of the home.
And then I know what's tricky with a lot of girls, there's that social and relational bullying. And so that's where you really could damage a person's reputation. And you could be spreading rumors or really intentionally excluding someone from a group. Or it also includes public humiliation.
Right. It's interesting. When I first started teaching, I was teaching at the high school level. And I taught in an all-girls private high school. And when I asked some senior teachers, for some advice about discipline in the classroom, they said to me, if you were teaching a full class of boys, you'd have to be concerned that there might be some hitting or spitting or punching when there's some kind of a disagreement. But with the girls, none of that will happen. But when you turn your back to write on the board, at that time, the blackboard, the talking is going on and the whispering and the notes and those kinds of things. So there really is a very clear distinction between boys and girls and what forms of bullying, how they take place and what is evident to parents and to school and to teachers in the schools.
It is. And it is sometimes hard to notice. Because then the other bullying that we know about all too well now in these times is the cyberbullying. And so sometimes you really can't see it, especially the adults. They don't see that. And then that cyberbullying, a lot of the reading that we've done and some of the research.
That's right.
Bullying has been going on for decades,
ever,
years, thousands of years. It's I think part of human development.
Yeah.
But the cyberbullying is 24/7. So it's like that. Okay, maybe the bullying was happening at school, but then it's following them home too. So that's a big
issue. That's a really big issue, because now with the phones, like you said, it's 24/7, and sometimes the phone will be in the child's bedroom in the evening, and parents are in another room. They don't realize that their child is having these online conversations with other students or who they think were friends, and all that sharing of rumor and things really helps to create a difficult and toxic situation for the children.
It is. I mean, those are the big bullying, but then there's the
prejudicial.
Thank you.
Okay.
And that's happening now too. There's a lot with race, with person's gender, religion, and it often follows these stereotypes and that can be very hurtful.
One of the things that's terrific that has happened in the last few years is that schools have really taken a stand in terms of bullying, particularly about prejudicial bullying, and they have addressed it right up front, which is great. And so that's I'm glad that schools are doing that and they're moving forward. I know in my experience, if we heard about anything like that, we immediately acted on it, and, as well as all types of bullying. But that one in particular, because there's been a lot of awareness now focused on that.
I think there is. I think there is. So lots of bullying. Then there's the, sexual bullying of having sexual rumors. There's the sexting. There's pictures that are being
That's right.
sent online. And it's just, what's hard is with the cyberbullying, with the sexting, it is permanent on some of these sites. So sometimes
this is
we
a
need
big
to
problem.
learn how permanent some of these things are.
That's
that
right.
you say online. You might feel like you're anonymous, but it's...
Things live on the internet forever. And that's a topic that parents are very, very worried about. Children have really taken it to heart so many times, and there have been self-harm issues that have occurred, and it's very scary for parents and for kids and schools as well. It's scary.
And I'm sure if you talk to anybody, and we've talked about this too, everybody has a story. Everybody has a story. Either they were bullied as a child, or they were the bullier, or like they might have said something, or they might have just gone along with it and they were a bystander.
That's right.
But they didn't stand up for the child who was bullied, but they also, they might have laughed. So some of these instances and experiences, they live on with a person forever. Like you have some of these signs from
That's
early
right.
childhood.
There was a book that was written in the early 2000s. It's called Odd Girl Out. It's by Rachel Simmons. And she did a study of how girl bullying is different from boy bullying. And she went into classrooms as part of her research. And she asked them, just tell me about, bullying. And exactly what you said, every single person had a story. And then when she met her colleagues and friends, she asked them, she told them about her research, and all of them, and that's how she got the idea for the book. Everybody had a story, and it just lives on. And many times it was something that happened in middle school, and it, you never forget it, whether it was about your appearance or about the way you spoke or whatever, something physical or something, a perceived idea that someone had about you. Someone was envious of you, didn't want you part of the group, and it just carried on for the rest of their lives. And these were adult professional women who were very successful. She was talking to as well, and it still bothered them.
Oh yeah, and you said it too, perception,
Right.
how you perceived something, and that is huge too, because you do see with children who are bullied, they might already have a low self-esteem.
That's right.
So it's really hard for them to then, these
That's
terrible
right.
things are happening to them, and then the perception of the child and how they're thinking of themselves is really what we need to be aware of.
When we have because we often have our conversations about mindset, and we'll say the most important voice that you hear in your head is your own. So if you perceive something as true that someone said about you, even though it may not be, but you perceive it as true, and you keep repeating that over and over to yourself, what does that do to your self-esteem? Like you mentioned,
Sure.
I mean, it's not helpful at all.
It isn't. So maybe we'll talk a little bit about some signs, because I think this is very crucial for parents, for teachers, to be aware, to notice. So we'll go over a few of these signs, because it really is, I think, crucial for parents, for teachers, and for the peers to intervene if they can, to provide support, because
That's right.
the signs can be really subtle, and it really can vary depending on the individual. So, and as you said, the difference
Right.
with girls and boys, and I have 3 children, I would probably approach one child differently than how I would approach the other. So it really is very different, but some common indicators could be their change of mood. So I think as a parent, you would really see that if, they're unusually sad or really moody or that anxious feeling or they're feeling depressed. And just notice, is it happening like during school activities or after? And just kind of, being aware and noticing that change of mood would be a big
That's really
sign.
a big one, especially we were talking about like the middle school time of life where children are going through puberty. They may seem particularly frustrated or angry, and parents might say, "Oh, I'm just chalking this up to teenage angst, puberty," but it may not be. It may actually be that anger is coming from bullying at school. They come home and they need a way to let out those feelings and emotions. So you're seeing it in that way. So to be alert to that is absolutely a big sign.
Definitely, definitely. And I think, too, you hear this with, and it's good, like our children, every year you go to the pediatrician is asking you a lot of these same questions, but around depression, it's like withdrawing. Maybe they're withdrawing something that they usually love to do, and they're avoiding social situations. And so if you see that, I think that's a huge sign,
That
too.
is a huge sign. School avoidance also is a big piece of that. You'll see them say, I don't want to go to school, or I don't want to go to a particular activity that they normally really like to go to and that they enjoyed. So it's something to be aware of.
Yeah.
Low self-esteem is another one. So a child who is usually confident, suddenly experiencing this sense of self-worth, like I'm not good enough, and talking about that is another indicator that something could be going on with bullying.
Yeah. Also, and I've read this with a few different stories, is sometimes the child who was bullied, they then can become aggressive. So they're then maybe taking it out on a younger sibling, or so that aggression is huge. The aggression towards the parent, too, could be real, because I know sometimes our children save those huge emotions for the people that they do feel connected to.
That's right.
So as the parent, like take it as a sign, don't be sensitive to it, or, well, you do need to be sensitive, but I'm saying don't take it personally. Don't take it personally, and just be aware that it's a sign.
That's right. It is
all the
a sign.
behavior is a sign. Communication.
I think one of the issues that comes up with looking at all of these different signs is that sometimes they could also be indicators of other things. And I think it's important that you spoke about when you go to the pediatrician to make sure that the child, you talk about this with the doctor so that the doctor can really check and make sure that there isn't anything else that may be impacting the child as opposed to bullying, because sometimes they do overlap. And it's important that you make your doctor aware of it. If the child is seeing a counselor, let them know, make them aware of it as well. I think those are important things to do as a parent.
There's so many resources out there. And I think this is a time when you can reach out for help and start looking for more resources.
Yeah.
Takes a village.
Well, there's certainly very supportive people at school usually, and friends, family, neighbors, like you said, and of course your pediatrician.
Yeah.
So sometimes parents will see physical signs that will give them a clue. Unexplained bruises, cuts, scratches, like, where did you get that? How did that happen? Tell me about that. So parents have to be alerted to that. Those can all be physical signs of bullying.
Yeah. And then the child, their change in habits, it could be their change in sleeping habits, eating habits. And like you said before, too, with that anxiety with school, there could be some frequent illnesses. Or maybe, too, they want to go to the school nurse, to get away from the situation.
That's a very popular one. We used to call them our frequent flyers.
Yeah.
So we'd ask the school nurse, how many frequent flyers do you have? And then we would talk with the teachers or the grade level team and ask about that particular child. Because as a school district leader and as a building leader and teachers, you want to be aware of children who might be experiencing or some kind of a pattern going to the school nurse, because it is an indicator. Why are they trying to avoid what's going on in the classroom? Or they come in for a recess. I was a school librarian for a number of years, and I had a group. I used to call them our library squad. Many times these were children who didn't feel that they fit in and they were being bullied. and they didn't want to go out to the playground at recess, so they would want to come in and help out in the library. So they had a job to come in and do some work, but it was a safe place for them, a safe space, and they felt that they were contributing, and they were with other students who had similar interests and maybe experiencing some of the same things. So it was a nice way to
Did that happen
that.
organically?
It happened organically.
Okay, so that's wonderful that you had that space for them.
Right. And so the children, so I had 1 or 2 children who said, can we come in during recess? And I knew why they wanted to come in during of course. And then a few other children came as well. So it worked out really well. But there are opportunities like that.
I think that that's huge. As the educator, you noticed.
Right.
You noticed, and that was another story that I had heard about, was the librarian noticed a middle schooler not wanting to go out for recess, and she let him stay in the library. And he said that saved his, middle school life. Like it was one adult who noticed, or especially we do want the peers to notice, but even the one trusted adult to notice and give that safe place. It's that feeling of safety.
Right.
We need that feeling of safety, and children that are bullied don't feel like they have that safe space.
That's right. That makes them feel even more anxious. There's no safe space in this building where they are spending all these hours. Many schools also, I know one of the schools that I worked in, we had a buddy bench. And so if you didn't have anyone to play with out on the playground, you can go, this was at the elementary level, you can go and sit on the buddy bench. And maybe one of your friends, and we would encourage the other children, if you see somebody on the buddy bench, go keep them company, maybe play with them. But if an adult saw that a child was there and no one was coming over, the adult would go over and start a conversation. Again, trying to make someone feel safe and that they weren't alone, or they weren't a target or a victim. So that was really important.
Because that's the thing, these kids, if they're not feeling safe at school, how do you think they're learning? Like, they're not capable to be learning if their brain is in that high alert. They don't feel safe. They're not able to learn. So we really see that academic decline. It's really hard for a child. And
like we were saying about the school avoidance, sometimes children make up excuses. I don't want to go to school. I don't want to, go a certain way to school. Or I've heard a lot of parents say they have to drop their children off at a certain spot so other children would not see them coming in the car, or they don't want to go on the bus because sometimes bullying happens on the bus. And it's particularly those times when there's no adult present that this occurs. So.
Yeah, and that is the huge, where does this happen? And when schools can really kind of edit their whole school campus and see, okay, where are the little hidden spots, and where is there not enough supervision, and are there some areas in our school where it might not feel safe? And that's to really big things for educators to be aware of, so that we're just, that supervision piece is huge. Right. One of the studies I had read about, they did say that there was a decrease in bullying right after COVID. So right after COVID, when there was probably less students in the building and more adults, they just had more supervision. So that was the only time. But otherwise, it's just, there hasn't been a decline. It's just, it's a problem. And I'm sure it's public school, it's private school, it's parochial school.
Where people are, there'll be bullying. So
well, and then I had asked a therapist, and I was like, but it's not, because one of the definitions I read, it said school age. And I'm like, but is this just school age? And she was like, no. And we talked about it happens in the workplace. And unfortunately, like, we are both educators, it even happens in schools. There are educators that are, teachers bullying other teachers. Like, it just is, it happens.
That's right. It does happen. But I think the supervision piece is really important, particularly if we were talking about the cyberbullying at home. Parents, one of the ways they can help kind of diffuse some of this is keeping your child in sight. So if the child is in a room by themselves with a computer or with a phone, things can happen there. If they're, if you have a computer in a public space, a more, an obvious space in the house, where the child is on the computer and you can kind of keep an eye on them as you're doing what you're doing. That is a good thing to do. And
that's the ideal, but it is really tricky now
sure is,
with either
phones.
smartphones, if the child has a smartphone. But that is, and we're going to be talking again on like cyberbullying and really that digital detox, but to not have the phones in the bedroom is like the biggest tool important. For these kids is not to have that phone, because imagine if that cyberbullying, and then you wake up at 2:00 in the morning and something's going on. So they need their time to sleep.
Right. And children do wake up particularly to see if something's going on, because they're concerned if someone said anything or posted anything. So they want to look, and you wouldn't know as a parent. So parents shouldn't feel concerned about taking that phone away. I know. It's hard to do, but in the long run, it really is beneficial to you and particularly for your child. So.
And that is the boundary that's going to keep them safe. That is the boundary where, it's a tricky boundary. It's a tough one. The kid's going to push back, and you're the parent. We have some ground rules, and this is just going to keep you safe. And lately I've been blaming it on the research, and I'm like, the brain research, you need to be focused. We are losing dopamine or gaining dopamine, whatever it is. I'm like, and they're tired of me talking about brain research, and I need your phone. And it's 10:15. You need to go to bed.
That's right. You need to go to bed.
And we know that, too, that we need to detox from the phones.
Absolutely. We're all addicted to them. So.
And that's a whole nother topic. We have a lot to talk about bullying. I think we'll do another podcast more about some tips and tricks of what we can do. Because I hope we didn't overwhelm and scare people.
I hope not.
But it's happening. And I think
it is happening. And parents want to know, and teachers want to know.
Yeah. And I think when it happens, as the parent, definitely reach out to their teachers. Definitely reach out to their guidance counselor. I know at our child's school, each child has their own guidance counselor, and usually it's the same throughout the school years. So let them know there's something going on, just so that you can be supported.
Turning the light on bullying really helps. So don't be afraid to do that. Don't just be a bystander. Right?
And what I did when we started to research this, and we talked about who are good resources, are librarians. Librarians. So I, came to this great library and got some books about bullying, just to learn myself too about how to talk to my child. What are the resources out there? What should I do? Because you don't want to make it worse.
That's right.
As a parent,
you don't want to make it worse.
So we will talk again. We will talk more about this very, very important topic.
It is very important. Okay, well, I look forward to our ongoing conversations about bullying.
Nice to see you, Dr. Sue.
Nice to see you too.